Hello, Friday the 13th, very lucky day. I could barely sleep last night. My name is Kasia. I'm a doctor of clinical nutrition. We're going to talk together. I'm going to introduce myself a little. Joe will introduce himself. We are so excited. There's something new that may be coming out of this. I work with Epstein-Barr virus. I've written a book on it. I train clinicians in my protocols. I teach people that are ill, and I have all kinds of dreams about doing more research on it, publishing. And Joel actually yesterday got me really excited about doing more publishing, clinical studies, real people, real cases, publishing for IBD actually. So that's me. Joel, if you'd like to introduce yourself to my tribe.
Yes. I am Joel Sprechman, the founder of One Great Gut. I am a former award-winning engineer in the defense contracting FBI space. I'm a TEDx speaker and published author and transformational coach for those with living with IBD and Crohn's. And Dr. Kasia and I met, I think a year ago now at a conference.
Yes.
And you've been a generous contributor to the One Great Gut collection, which is coming soon. But more recently, we've been chatting about this epic research that you stumbled across.
Yes.
I'm very excited. I emailed my community last night, and I've never received so many replies.
Wonderful.
Who they couldn't make it, but they're really looking forward to this recording. So thank you.
Of course.
Thanks for the recording. And
of course. It is recording. I did not forget to click the button.
Great.
Well, Joel, for my community, and I also reached out to some of my clinician colleagues, how do you know so much about IBD, may I ask?
It's one of those pain to purpose stories. So the short version is I was diagnosed in 2001, and as I now know very well, chronic disease gets chronically worse when you don't look at some of the root causes and address them. And I, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your viewpoint, stayed in that conventional medicine world for at least 10 years. Eventually moved to California. Things got progressively worse for many different reasons, probably viruses being one of them. And I eventually left the engineering world and realized that this is my purpose. And I've discovered many individuals, as you may be aware, I'm the host of the Crohn's and Colitis Summit, who figured out their thing. They figured out their root causes. Not everyone has these extreme cases. As myself, I'm on the upper end of the bell curve, thank God, I guess. And yeah, just publishing these cases of individuals who've really found their what they claim is a cure. And you know, without going into the semantics of what a cure is, hey, if they're living a life without pharmaceuticals, and not having symptoms, that's pretty damn good. Whether it's a cure or remission, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah, whatever you call it.
So that's really my story. And if I can take a moment, Kasia, I want to just share what's been going on in just the past 24 hours. This will really give people, you know, the understanding of this is what it's like to live with IBD, right? And so, as I shared last night, and I have shared with other people, I'm really thriving. Like, I'm doing great. All my markers are decreasing, my calprotectin, my SED rate, my CRP, lactoferrin. It's all a heck of a lot better than it was just weeks ago. And I'm also weaning off pharmaceuticals. And so that's a thing. It takes a lot of systematic, you know, approach. Yeah. And so I'm due for my Stelara subcutaneous injection yesterday. And then I received a message from CVS. I hadn't shared this with you last night. I received a message from CVS. Hey, what delivery date do you want? I was like, well, I already gave that to you like 5 days ago. Well, here, I'd like it tomorrow because it's due, right? Doctor says it's due. And then they come back the next day. Oh, sorry, insurance says there's no pre-auth, which, like, mind blown, because I've been taking this for a year. So why is there not, what's this? So if you've watched me on Facebook and, you know, the struggles, you know, it's just really amazing that I'm starting to get symptoms and I can't get the medication. But the good news is I literally just got the phone with my doctor's office, insurance, and CVS specialty, and it will hopefully be shipped today after they did all of what they needed to do on their end. But the really, you know, why I'm sharing this is it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and I've been dealing with this since 9. And so I give so much empathy and compassion and understanding for others who are going through the same rigmarole. And, you know, it got to the point where I was like, hey, can you just ship this thing so I can take it? I don't want it in the ER, and we'll deal with this bureaucracy ridiculous later. And she's like, well, they may not approve it, and then, you know, you're going to be out. I didn't understand if it was 20,000 or literally 200,000. And I don't know if one's with insurance, one's without. And so anyway, it's just really ridiculous what patients have to go through, and I completely understand that. And so I just wanted to share what literally has been happening in the last three hours.
Can everybody see why Joel is such an inspiration to so many people, including me, since we met? And I'm so sorry. Woo. But you know, you persevere, that's the thing, but you have the energy and physical energy also to do it. And I remember when I met Joel first time, he didn't look as good. Like when I met you this August, like, Joel, you look so good physically. You have meat on you, you have muscle on you, you have color on your cheeks. You put weight on, and that's a huge difference in 1 year.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a lot of work. I've been working with some really epic individuals, and a lot of work that I do on my own. I call myself a mindset expert because I've really dove deep into the mindset and how much that plays into the whole realm of physical health. So very spirituality, mindset. And I think since the year between the 2 times I saw you, it was 34 pounds, I believe, I put on, which, you know, it's pretty amazing. I'm not where I want to be. This morning I was at 134, which is pretty good. So that gives you an indication of where I was before. And it's going up more. I'm able to eat more diverse foods while decrease the medication, while delivering talks in front of hundreds of doctors. Thank God for all of this amazingness.
This is Joel. So this is his path, and this is why he was so ill, but he has this advocacy, even though he still has ups and downs. And so your advocacy is amazing. You inspired me last night to think about all the studies we could do to actually validate the possible connection with the Epstein-Barr virus. That got me so excited. I was digging through more research last night, actually. So let's talk about this new research, as we promised in the title, right? So the short story is I was finishing the book. It was spring, summer 2018. I was almost ready to send the book to be published, and I was thinking, well, let me just check on IBD. It's like, nah. I used to work with IBD much more now, and you know, now I was working with more Epstein-Barr, and people with IBD were not really coming to me with Epstein-Barr. I didn't see all that connection, but I used to work with the gut inflammation, IBD, all that way back before Epstein-Barr. It's like, no, there's not. Never heard of one. I've worked with Dr. Gerald Mullen for a few years, never heard of that connection. So, but let me just look. This was not, it was just a divine intervention. That voice told me, oh, just take a look. So this is when the book is ready. I'm already tired, ready to go. I go into PubMed and I look at studies like, wait. What am I seeing? There's one. I have a whole chapter on it now, and I was in a hurry. So there's a couple of pages, and I can talk about those. And I let go, you know, I published the book. But last night I looked into that rabbit hole, and I found much more, like consistent studies. It's like, I can't wait to talk and unveil something. So first thing is, there was a phenomenal breakthrough study by Dr. Harvey like the motorbikes. It's very easy to find him in PubMed. Just type his name and DBV. And I watched his interview, and I really want to talk to him and maybe do some clinical studies together, because he finally had tools to go after, look at our DNA, cellular DNA, and he found out that the EBV viral protein can actually affect the expression of our DNA coding for autoimmunity. So we know that environmental factors can change expression of our DNA, but here's the virus that does that. And so he tracked specific 7 autoimmune conditions. And for me, the biggest aha moment was celiac and IBD. Celiac, since that study, I've been watching with my clients, and I can see the pattern, celiac and IBD, what's going on, but I haven't seen anyone with IBD, so I don't know, but I'm watching celiac. Celiac hasn't been studied as caused by IBD, but basically he says we see black and white that this virus can cause inflammatory bowel disease, both Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. So now.
So rewind a second. What you mentioned EBV protein.
EBNA2.
A lot, but what is an EBV protein?
It's called EBVNA2. That's the little molecule that they tracked that was able to go into our cellular DNA area for coding for autoimmunity. And
does everyone have EBVNA2 or NA2, or only some humans?
No, EBVNA2 is part of the virus.
So only those who have the virus have the protein.
Well, the thing is that 90 to 95% of global population carries the virus. And it's the same question I always have. Not 90 or 95% of global population is ill chronically with Epstein-Barr, right? Some are. A small percentage is, but that percentage, when it goes chronic, it manifests into chronic illness and a lot of autoimmunity. There's a laundry list of autoimmune conditions, not just these 7. Plus, it's oncogenic, so it can cause cancer. It's very well documented. We have a website.
Any thoughts on that? On why some people who, since essentially 100%, 99% of people have the protein in them, but only some experience chronic condition. What's the gap? Why the difference?
I don't know. We don't know. This is this is interesting. This is like the new direction, and I know he's excited because that's asking for more studies. So I immediately can think of creating a pilot group and running my protocol with them, and just having different tracks to see if we see some improvement. Because when I looked at the studies, this is very fascinating. Apparently, when you look at studies, it's very consistent. Research says it's common for biopsies in people in IBD to find the virus. It's common. And for example, there was one study, the mild cases, there was a study with a prevalence of EBV in the biopsies. I think it was a biopsy. It was a study from 2019, this year. It's the Chinese patients with IBD. Mild cases had 10.71% of the virus, of the group had virus. Now, moderate cases had 32.73, but severe cases had 75%. 75% of the severe cases in that group actually had the virus in the tissue. And if you look, it's frequently detected in the intestinal mucosa of IBD patients, I'm quoting. So another study, EBV DNA was...
What year is this from?
These are not, the Chinese studies from this year. Dr. Harley is from last year, but these studies are 2009, 2012. These have been around.
I want to mention something quickly. So we spoke last night that we're going to partner together with the nonprofit I have, the One Great Gut Foundation. And, you can check out our website, onegreatgut.com/foundation, and see the researchers we're partnering with now. Dr. Kasia, who's not only a clinician, but also a researcher, as you can tell. And if you look in the PubMed, she has published stories. We've linked to them. But you may be wondering, why is there another nonprofit in the IBD space? Well, I'll tell you exactly why. It's because of this bullshit. So sorry for cursing, but it really disappoints me and is disgusting that there's all this old research that is really not being followed up on. And so and in parallel with research being funded that is just nonsensical and ridiculous and obvious. So what do I mean by that? One, I mean, so Kasia, when I posted this event last night on Facebook, one of the women in my group, Michelle Moore, says, the first thing I was tested for was EBV back in 1986.
What?
Okay, so that's like, why is this missing, right? Two, there was just recent published research. Maybe if you're following me on social media, you saw this. It was out of MIT, and the novel research that was published was fried food is known to cause, I think it was cause problems with those, with mice with colitis, maybe even cause colitis and cancer, which really makes me roll my eyes and very angry because my body knew, you're laughing, right? Exactly. My body knew 2 decades ago that fried food is not something we should do. And if you have IBD and you're listening and you've played with diet at all, you know this as well, fried food and IBD. So is there a point to be spending tons of money on things we already know?
Right.
Or is it a waste of the time of the people who fundraised, the organizations who took care of that, those in that circle of the fundraiser, you know, corporations, family, friends, etc., and the precious time of the researchers, while those with IBD are suffering? Like, it's just a broken system as far as I'm concerned. So I'm really looking to partner with novel researchers doing important research like those on the web, including what you're mentioning right now, is potentially doing a pilot study of those to try your protocol. And it's you mentioned you had a client with Crohn's in the past it's been successful, right?
Yeah, this was interesting because my work, the reason I was able to, and we talked about it last night with Joel, the reason I was able to write the book so fast is because for majority of my clinical practice, which is almost 15 years, I really loved teaching my detox program. It had a protocol, it was plant-based, and it was just a very hands-on nutritional makeover, very gentle, but profoundly healing for a lot of people. And now I remember people that did it that had lupus going into remission. It's like, you know, I didn't really understand. I knew that this is very good protocol, but I didn't know about EBD at that time. But when I started to do research and check into literature, medical literature, and write the book and learn protocols and, you know, work with them with my own clients, I realized what I had been teaching in that protocol exactly matches the needs for the Epstein-Barr. That's where the research is. And so I remember the young woman with Crohn's that came to me. She was 29, I think. She did the detox program with us. She already had bowel resection. So, and she was not doing well at all. She was miserable. And that brought her to life. And I was really impressed. So who knows? Because there was so much anti-EBV activity in that protocol. And this is like much of the recovery foods and recommendations, recipes. This is kind of stems from that program. I just edited a little bit. So yes, but you know, nobody makes this connection. It's only by sheer luck that I thought to look into IBD before the book was out, and then finding Dr. Harley's. I mean, I was able to put his study into the book like last moment. I think I did, actually. Yes, I did, and that was it. But I really feel we have something very important on our hands, because if we have hundreds of thousands of people that have been disabled with IBD, and this is the missing part, we can do so much good. And we need to, and this is also a call for my colleagues in my field. There's not many clinical nutritionists that publish. We just are so busy. We never do. And my colleagues don't know that they can.
Let me ask one. I think people might be wondering. I want to ask you a question. What are your thoughts on GMOs? Because you mentioned food being part of the protocol. What are your thoughts on GMOs?
We have studies showing that the glyphosate can induce more sensitivity to gliadin, which is one of the proteins in wheat, barley, rye.
And why are you mentioning glyphosate when I ask GMOs?
Because one aspect of GMOs is that the glyphosate is part of it.
Okay, so the reason why I asked this question, so you agree that glyphosate and GMOs are damaging potentially to the mucosal lining, and that correlates exactly with many patients who I've met who've been, you know, I mentioned I'm on the upper scale, and those on the lower scale who literally all they did was change their diet to remove GMOs, and all their IBD Crohn's colitis symptoms went away. So the reason why I asked this question and why it's important is the medical business mastermind that we're part of. One of our colleagues mentioned recently that in the grand scheme of things in the world, 90% of researchers still believe that GMOs are sound and healthy and etc., which is just mind-boggling because we apparently are at the forefront because we're the ones working, Dr. Kasia, with patients directly, and me leading a community who's telling me, who's giving me feedback. So, you know, the implication here is that science has an agenda and is bought out just like the other establishments. And unfortunately, that's unfortunately true, not because of the scientists. I believe the scientists, just like the doctors, are doing the best they can with the equipment and knowledge they have. Mm-hmm. It's maybe people above them in the system. And, you know, you might have seen a blog post I wrote that it was published in Gastroenterology magazine. My GI gave it to me that the protocols used by gastroenterologists, you know, of the pharmaceutical side has financial bias to it coming from the committee level. So there's problems in all of these, you know, individual silos, but there are, you know, ethical, you know, humans who have really figured this out and are trying to do our best. And that includes myself and Dr. Kasia. I just wanted to bring, like, why are we the ones thinking of this EBV research being important when there's so many other scientists and researchers out there?
Right, that's a good point. And you know, the feedback you're getting is not just anecdotal on your end, because I know one of the biggest leaders in the education about GMOs once commented he's traveled for almost 20 years advocating and educating everyone, including a lot of medical doctors and practitioners. And he says over the years, he had so many of the clinicians come to him and say, I just had to train my patients to remove GMOs and their gastrointestinal issues, just like IBD. IBD was one of the examples that he quoted, I remember, they would go away. So, you know, the food resources are tainted. That's what I would say. And I was very depressed when I learned about GMOs when I moved to this country in 1996. But one of the reasons to offset that was to move into clinical nutrition, become a nutritionist, and work on the positive side of it. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah,
I literally,
to dovetail on your quote about the food system, I was just watching a podcast with Dr. Zach Bush, and I wrote down this quote: "It's a very big business when you start to control food. The ultimate political control is around the food chain and whether it delivers health or not." So that gives you insight. And if you Google Dr. Zach Bush, you get a lot more information on that.
A lot, yes.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So, well, I want to bring it back to things that we can do, and especially the things that I can do, because that keeps me grounded and happy. Otherwise, and I don't want our viewers to also get more depressed, because it's very easy to get depressed, especially if you already have a chronic illness. So,
you want to look at my labs and talk about then things you can do about those numbers?
Let's talk about the solutions.
Yeah. So let me, I'm going to share my screen here. If I share it, people can see it?
Let's check with them. Go ahead.
If I share this, okay, can you see that?
Let me see. I need to get out of full screen so I can see. You can. Let's see if we can ask our viewers if you can see the lab. We just need a few yes. Okay, go ahead, my dear. So we are, so awesome. Yes.
So here are my labs that I did, and I did these, this was most recent. This is not too long ago in 2019. Oh no, sorry. This is the ranges. this is what I did November of 2018. Sorry, this is 19. No, this is 18. Sorry, 18.
Mm-hmm.
September 2018 and then October 2013. So can you explain what we're looking at?
Oh, let me see if I understand what is what.
Oh, so just let's look at this. What does it mean? What do each of these lab markers mean to start?
So let's see.
EBV, AB, VCA, IgG.
So this one, yes, this one stays elevated for life much of the time. And when people start feeling better and getting their lives better with chronic EBV, that should start going lower. And yours is 21.9, where negative is less than 18.
No, so this is the ranges according to one of the labs. It's not mine.
Wait, it's not yours. Yours is 597.
So my most recent value was 597. Before that, it was 2.47, and before that, very vague, above 8.
Yeah. So these make sure that you understand that 597 was a lab with a different range. The September 2018, I think we talked about it. The ranges were different with a different lab, right?
Here I'll show. Well,
so the 2.47
into my actual lab spreadsheet. You'll get to see a little bit. So here you'll see. Where is it? I feel like everyone's looking at it inside my body here. So here, if I scroll over, yeah. So this was through LabCorp. April 2019 was greater than 100, and then if you go before that. It's about the same, 597, also LabCorp in November of 2018.
Yeah. So this one, you have triple digits, which is pretty bad, and you don't need triple digit to be positive. And some people go above 600, at which point the lab doesn't register the number. So it only says more than 600. So luckily you have a number so you can track it, and hopefully it'll continue going down. Maybe you can drop it to double digits. I don't know. But you can be perfectly happy living your life and have this elevated. It's also based on symptoms. You know, these will stay elevated for life. But the numbers should...
Where this came... So we'll talk in a moment with supplementation because you have recommendations. But if someone wants to be preventative, and even if, like myself, if I have the high values, where does it come from in the first place? Like, how can I avoid more of that? Any thoughts?
I don't want to box open. Welcome to my world. That's all the things that you've been doing. You know, the life. We have to look for triggers, and you and I had those conversations, and you told me even today. You said, you know, stress is one of the biggest triggers. Stress is one of the biggest triggers for Epstein-Barr virus reactivation. That's very well documented in research.
So you're saying your stress level can make that value increase or decrease?
Well, it will probably the numbers will probably correspond with how you feel. So, but as I said, I would not live my life according to VCA IgG, just because, you know, you have a memory and you're going to be tainted. So that's not going to run your life. If it continues increasing, then that's a problem. Then, you know, you need some therapy, you need some therapeutic protocol, something is triggering the virus, whether it's Wi-Fi exposure or toxic molds, which I think you had a problem with that, and that can really make things worse with the virus. So that's a big one. So, and most people with chronic EBV will have that elevated. Okay, so that's the second one, VCA, but IgM. Okay, that is typically normal in people with chronic EBV, just because it flags out with the initial infection. Typically, I've seen very, very few cases when it would stay elevated anytime they test it. And so I don't know if it means that every time a person tests, they just feel awful, so they go and test again, or it just stays.
When you say normal, you mean negative below 36?
Correct, with a normal range, yes. So it's not expected to be high. It's probably more expected to be high if you have children who have, you know, acute mononucleosis or enlarged spleen, or, you know, but so that doesn't mean you don't have chronic complications or EBD. It doesn't, and that's where the medical community is not looking at that this way, but that's the research too. I'm quoting the research. The third one is early antigen, and that's the most important one, because that becomes positive during lysing. So this is where the cells that live in your body somewhere, the EBV virus is kind of hibernating inside infected cells, and when it leaves those cells, lyses them, spills out into the bloodstream again, it can be caught, that antibody can be caught then, and that means that you are actually in the so-called flare-up or reactivation. And so, but it's not long-lived, because the virus likes to leave the blood and implant itself inside the cells, you know, hide from the immune system. It could be thyroid tissue cells, B cells, of course. It just leaves the blood. So you won't see these early antigen antibodies for long, just a few weeks.
What do you mean? What do you mean by positive during lysine? Because I know lysine is a supplement.
Oh no, lyse, L-Y-S-E. Lyse as a verb means that the cell is lysed. So the cell burst open, and the new young viruses that were being made in that cell, the infected cell, are spilling into the bloodstream. That's how the virus keeps coming back and infecting more tissues. And then after a few weeks, you know, it stops lysing. So yes, it's not the supplement. It's very similar. Good question to clarify. So, you know, that's early antigen can be missed, because, you know, I have cases when let's say my students, you know, my other clinicians that I train, they say I have a classic presentation. It looks like classic chronic EBV, but early antigen is normal. But I'm asking, where was it tested? January. When did she feel the worst? Thanksgiving. You see, so Thanksgiving was when she was lysing those cells. But by the time she got to test it in January, the cells stopped lysing. She was kind of repairing, so that's the latent phase. And much of the time, EBV can be in the latent phase, but it's still in the cells, infecting them and doing damage. So early antigen is really important, and sometimes doctors miss it, and that's really tragic. So I have a whole chapter in my book just because, you know, it's all.
You mean doctors miss it? They don't ask for the test, or they miss?
Sometimes they don't say. Sometimes they don't ask for the test. They just do the 3 other ones. Yeah, exactly. Because of course, if you just do VCA IgM and it's negative, and VCA IgG it's positive always, then they're going to say you had past infection, but it doesn't have any relevance on your health.
And so explain again, why is this test so important to run, being that it's short-lived even?
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks, like 3-4 weeks when it can elevate. So with IBD, I would say this: if you want to figure out if this virus is part of the presentation, maybe even caused it initially, I would say as soon as you get a flare-up, get the test done and see if, you know, what you have elevated, and if you have the early antigen elevated. If you have the early antigen elevated, that's black and white proof that you are reactivating, lysing your cells right now, which means that you have an additional problem. And then, you know, and then the rest is what you and I want to partner in, and what I want to do. We have a question about PCR. PCR, no, my PCR IgG tests have now been negative for the last few months. Have I put EBV back into remission? No, when you look at research, PCR is not a very valid, statistically valid test to do for chronic EBV. it will flag up during the first infection often. So the percentage will be different for pretty low for the chronic aspect of EBV. So remember that PCR is the DNA, and the DNA of Epstein-Barr will only show in the blood for a few short weeks too. And then the virus disappears from the blood and implants itself inside cells, inside thyroid, inside liver, connective tissue, brain, wherever. So, and I documented in my book. So really, please understand that I'm trying to just go by research. This is the book. It's available on Amazon. Just put my name in the Amazon and you'll find it. And we also have a free website that talks about labs as well. I have a whole big chapter on the labs here. So I would still not rely on PCR. I would rely on those 4 markers, including nuclear antigen. I mean, early antigen. That's very important. Does it make sense?
It does to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then let's go to next is
Nuclear antigen.
This one, right? Yeah.
Nuclear antigen is similar to BCA IgG. Both of these are kind of flagged for life. And yours was what? 136, so that's also triple digits, but much lower, right?
Yeah, so what's interesting here is it was 2.21, and then not too long later, it was 166.
No. I think I remember when we talked about this lab, it had different ranges. It was a different lab. You're not looking at the same range level.
So when you say different lab, I think I always use LabCorp. Is it a particular way you order with the lab?
I don't know. It depends. Sometimes, sometimes the ranges from, sometimes the ranges within 1 digit only. And it looks like that September 1 was a different lab. Maybe they researched it differently, but you would have to look at the ranges.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Making sure that we compare apples to apples.
They make it very easy for us to look at this. Okay, so regardless, we have these values, and what do the values indicate?
So your values, when you tested, you had exposure to Epstein-Barr, and it was pretty big because the numbers were triple digits. And so I would say next time you feel really awful, like you really feel awful, like a truck hit you over the head again, that's why I would test it again, especially early antigen, to see if that's what's possibly also adding to things or driving things. That's the thing. So, and
go ahead. Yep.
I want you to share, because the fascinating thing that Joel told me recently, which I did not know he was doing, is this wonderful doctor who actually put you on antiviral protocol. We talked about that.
Yeah, I'll share. I'll be happy to share that in a moment. I want to say something. Melody, who's listening to us right now, maybe you can help explain
Yes.
why this is and how this is useful to give perspective. She says reference ranges are different for each lab, and they change through the years as they update data. What does that mean?
Well, the only thing that it means is that you have to look at your results within the lab's ranges. That's the best you can do.
And she's saying that the ranges change through the years. So their reference ranges are going to change because I'm looking at things from different years.
Well, I know that some ranges in some testing become obsolete. So I'm not really familiar with how different labs run ranges, what it depends on. But okay. My journey would be when you look at your timeline, and if you start testing your EBV, regardless of the ranges in the labs, you will see a pattern. Whether certain ones are always elevated, whether they pop up here and there, like early antigen. Some people don't make antibodies, so these can be false negative. They just don't make enough.
Right. Okay.
That's another problem. So there are permutations and irregularities in EBV testing, And the basic ones I listed on our ebdhelp.com. We have a whole page of different varieties of test results, so you can cross-check with that. But there's like a whole chapter in the book in much more depth.
Great.
So yeah, so there are resources. And on the website also, there are at least 4 options for people to click and find the lab direct to consumer, because what I find in the population with chronic EBD is people beg doctors for 2-3 years to test. They can't even get tested, and people don't understand that they just can pay $100 or $150. If they have that resource, it would be worth just going directly to a lab and get that test done, because it's your life. You only have one life, so you have to be your own advocate. And then you can get resources and start reading it, maybe read the book and understand those labs. But the early antigen is very important. There's also one marker that very few people test, or very few labs test. I think Quest actually tests this. It's nuclear antigen IgM. Nuclear antigen IgM. This one, it's done very seldom, but I've had cases when a person only flagged that one. Everything else was normal. So her test would have come normal if she only had those 4. And she was very compromised and extremely ill. But she did have that. That is current reactivation as well.
So EBV, nuclear antigen IgM, is current reactivation.
Yes.
So that's probably just as important as early antigen IgG.
Yeah. And it's not tested. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Not every lab tests it. So
let me share want me to share the protocols that I've been doing?
Sure. I want to be careful with protocols because.
Well, just a few supplements that.
Just a few, because people can.
Specifically for viral.
Okay, because I don't want people to.
The whole protocol is specific to me, and that's not what we're talking about. We're just speaking about you right now.
We don't want anybody to get hurt because they just take it to heart and go and do it on their own. Whatever you hear from Joel, if you can run it by your wonderful doctor that you have and do it together.
Yeah, either run it by your doctor or set up for a consult with Dr. Kasia, and she can help further, right?
Or yes, that as well. Or the book has them, and they're very well explained with contraindications and caution and all that. So that's much better to grab that than just start experimenting on your own. Very cautious here. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm working with Dr. Grace Liu, and I'm so blessed to be working with her and call her a good friend. So she is really that good and teach at the practitioner level. So that being said, what the 3 supplements that I believe address the virus, and please correct me if I'm wrong, are liposomal cat's claw, monolaurin, and L-lysine. Those are the 3. And I want to let people know that I think they're available on your website, but they're also available on One Great Gut through the One Great Gut Dispensary. And I think the labs we're associated with, if you want to pay out of pocket, you can also get these tests run. The reason why I'm mentioning that is a portion of all sales that come from that will then go towards the One Great Gut Foundation I mentioned.
That's wonderful.
So that being said, what are your thoughts on those supplements?
Yeah, monolaurin is wonderful. And interestingly, remember you shared that case of a case report that was published in Germany in medical journal about a woman, very well documented, with photography of colon inflammation before and after. It was 4 months or so of organic coconut oil. Monolaurin is research for coconut. And literally, some people that are sensitive to coconut may react to monolaurin, but that is a strong antiviral and antifungal supplement, actually. Yeah,
so Dr. Kasia is referring, if you go to One Great Gut, look at the blog, and search for, I think, just coconut oil. You'll find a blog post I did showing, I basically republished a case study out of Germany. There was a woman who, I believe she had already had surgery, and she was basically not doing well and was due for another surgery. And she told her, you know, doctors, I really don't want to do this. Is there any other options? And they thought that maybe coconut oil enemas would make a difference. And you can read more about that, you know, her journey, and even with colonoscopy pictures there as well.
Yeah, so the monolaurin, I see a question, and a very good question from Michelle. Monolaurin does create a die-off effect if it's too aggressive. So actually, you know, in my work with my community, EBV 101 and groups, that's not my first to go. But I think for IBD, that might be like the first one. My choice of monolaurin, I add it if we have fungal infection on top of that, or if other things are not quite delivering. Because I have other stellars, I have, you know, different protocols, so we don't even get to that. But you want to be gentle with monolaurin. You don't want to push to the point where you have side effects, because commonly people feel like they have flu for a while, and really you don't need this die-off. You don't need a healing crisis. It's not a healing crisis, it's a crisis. And when you have IBD, you don't need any more of that. So just be gentle and step slowly. I know you can step it up, especially with the product called Loricidin, little pellets.
And I apologize if I speak quickly sometimes. I'm from New York and I get excited, so those are the excuses. So to reiterate, the 3 supplements I mentioned earlier were monolaurin, cat's claw,
and lysine.
L-lysine, which L-lysine is something that you can incorporate more in your diet, right? And you can take out arginine foods, which is maybe why the AIP diet works so well, and you can increase lysine foods. Is that correct?
So yes, you can do that, but you know, I'm a nutritionist and I've seen enough to know that if I don't have to restrict diet, I'm so happy. I actually train people to bring more food groups, and if you have enough lysine, especially in a protocol, you will be able to tolerate foods with arginine. So that's, you know, you need a little bit of arginine for the function too. And I find that L-lysine is one of the biggest hitters, really. The only reservation is if you have gallbladder issues, if you have kidney issues, then it's a no-no. You want to read a little bit more about it before you get on it. But most people do very well, even on higher doses. And cat's claw, some of my community uses it and uses it very well. Now my approach is a little different. I use herbs in a different way as an adjunct, but my protocol sticks with nutrient-based, very well-researched supplements. One nutrient at a time. So glycine is an individual nutrient that hits the virus very hard. And I have a number of them in my toolkit that I can play with depending on a person, and you know, we customize it, and they do deliver. So herbs for me are in adjunct, because we actually don't appreciate that immune cells are the ones that keep EBV in check in most people. Immune system, well-working immune system. But immune cells are made of something. They need raw material, and it comes from nutrients. And some of the biggest hitters for EBV, like selenium, for example, we're not getting enough of it in the diet, and it helps boost your functions against cancer as well. It is instrumental to make your glutathione support your liver, but it also is #1 nutrients for your thyroid support. So it's like we can really multitask with very specific nutrients, because I'm a nutritionist. Herbs are wonderful as adjunct in tinctures if people want to do it. I recommend teas, herbal teas. I just got an email last night from a colleague of mine that graduated from my clinician program, and I haven't talked to her for a year or so, and she says, you know, My biggest ones still are selenium, and I have to tell you, those herbal teas, the specific herbal teas, it's just so easy for people. It's working. It's helping. I'm helping so many people. So there's ways to do it, and yours is very good. She created a protocol that works for you. I like that monolaurin.
So also keep in mind, I'm just in phase 1 of the protocol. I do not know what phase 2 is going to bring, and I'm sure it's going to also be dependent upon the labs that I'll continue to run.
That's a good point. That's a great beginning. But the monolaurin for IBD community is very promising. So
yeah.
that would, I would definitely.
I was off of all pharmaceuticals at the end of 2016 for, you know, I don't have the dates because it became a normal way of life, but it was probably a year or two, if I remember correctly. And from working with my then naturopath, monolaurin was a big part of that
Yes.
journey as well.
Yes. Yes, I want people to really visualize that German case report. Like for me as a clinician who works in trenches with individuals, next time I talk to a person with IBD, I say, can you do enemas? Can you do organic coconut oil enema? Can you do that for 4 months? Can you work with your doctor with that? Can you try it and see if you get better? What if it modulates that virus? I mean, I have such interesting studies. There was one study, I have to read you guys this study because this is really interesting. I'm just going to quote it here. So there was a group. You take biopsies of 11 patients with Crohn's, 5 patients with ulcerative colitis. There were 2 control groups, kind of. One was disease-free colorectal carcinoma biopsies and 10 biopsies with appendicitis samples. And so they found no EBV in the appendicitis or colorectal carcinoma, but they found 63.3% in Crohn's and 60% in ulcerative colitis. And then in another one, there was a study of ileocolic resection specimens, 16 people with ulcerative colitis, 20 with Crohn's, and they all showed a higher level of EBV infected cells in the sites of active inflammation than those of inactive inflammation in both groups, with no statistical difference between both illnesses.
So are you saying there was EBV present regardless if the person was in flare or remission?
They were more in the active inflammation than in the inactive inflammation.
So that indicates those who address EBV have maybe a greater chance of reaching remission.
Possibly. I mean, there was a quote, EBV may be more involved in the onset of IBD than in its severity of clinical evolution. However, another study showed differences. The prevalence was higher with the severity of IBD, like severe IBD, they had 75% of present, 75% of them had present IBD. And then now the interesting thing is this. So this would be a good kind of track record for everyone watching today is if you, and this is you need a medical team or somebody you trust. Again, this is research. And this is also my clinical understanding from my experience. With the virus, the immune system is the best ally. This is what does the trick. This is why maybe I have the virus, but I thrive. No problem, right? Now, people with chronic EBV, if they have to undergo corticosteroid therapy, immunosuppressive therapy, they have a surgery, they have to do this, that. What I hear sometimes is that they really reverse, they have a terrible reactivation of EBV. Maybe they don't understand it, but they feel awfully sick. And there are some studies with IBD where researchers suggest if the cause of this particular IBD case is the virus, then immunotherapy is not the best path. And then there was a case actually when a person with, and there was a suggestion there was a case of EBV-induced IBD The presentation looked just like ulcerative colitis. It was bleeding. You can be bleeding, bloating, mucosa, blood in the mucosa, and so on and so forth. But the person didn't respond and didn't improve with corticosteroids.
I want to correct you for 1 second. So what you saw with the bleeding colon is representative of ulcerative colitis in flare. And the reason I'm mentioning that is it's a very slight but big distinction, especially for anyone listening, is I don't want anyone to associate ulcerative colitis with rectal bleeding. Because if you have that association in your mind, then you're never going to get out of that loop. So what she meant to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not speaking for you, is what she saw was ulcerative colitis in flare. With and in a specific flare, right? Because we all know that you can have ulcerative colitis, which I had for 18 years. You could be in flare and not be bleeding. It's only a potential symptom of bleeding. But I just want to break that connection because it's slight, but it's really important.
Yeah, for the community. Yeah, absolutely.
Colitis, you can get to remission, and that's not part of your journey. It doesn't have to be part of your journey.
Yeah, correct. So basically what the research was saying, that particular case study was just a case report of a person. The presentation looked like a classic, IBD, but the corticosteroid therapy did not improve the status because it was viral. But of course, they don't provide any antiviral therapy and so on and so forth. So this is just the beginning. So I would say
this is why we wrote on the event posting, what if immunosuppression makes things worse? So you just explained that it's not going to help. Can you explain why it would make things worse?
So yes, and that's documented in EBV, that researchers say if you have chronic Epstein-Barr virus infection, the suppression of the immune system is not advisable, because in research the repression of the immune system means that the virus can now do whatever it wants to do.
So does that mean, as part of maybe your recommendation, as part of your protocol, if someone is on immunosuppressants, it's maybe a good idea to also improve the immune through natural supplementation while you're on immunosuppressants?
Yes, this is a great conversation with the medical team. Then, we have to start somewhere. You cannot just stop any medication. We want to be clear, right, Joe? Because that's dangerous. But the point is, because we don't know if 60%, 75%, there's another 55% for Crohn's, 64% for ulcerative colitis. The EBV DNA was detectable in gastric mucosa. If 50-60% of people with IBD actually have that causative root, it would make sense to track your history and say, do I get better with the medications or not? Do they backfire? Am I confused? Am I struggling? And then, the boosting the immune system for me is, again, I really work with foods, healing foods, and the single nutrients that are very well equipped to fight the virus, but also provide the building blocks for your immune cells. And one of the building blocks is actually fiber. So you have to be careful, obviously, but fiber, I think, is misunderstood in the traditional old research in IBD. But fiber gets all the way to the colon. The colonic good bacteria consume it. They require it. The colon cells require butyric acid for energy source, and 25% of energy requirement of the colonic cells can be met by the bacteria, the good bacteria, pooping it out. Basically, bacteria are happy consuming your fiber. That's what they eat in your colon. They're going to poop out butyric acid and other short-chain fatty acid. They feed the colonic cells, right? It's very important to be. But also, some of the butyric acid will go into the bloodstream and feed T regulatory cells, and they can downregulate even the T17 cells, which can code for autoimmunity, which can ignite autoimmunity. So it's like, it's the simple things simple things can have a profound effect on your microbes and on your colon. So there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of, you know, I'm just so thrilled that we're seeing something, we're seeing a pattern. And as a clinician, I can run some groups and I can help people possibly, and we can see if it actually translates into people getting better. I also want people to be aware that there are certain cases, if your case is irregular, atypical, it may actually not be Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. It might be chronic EBV. There are presentations and there are cases. One is called EBV-associated T-cell LPD. It can look like lesions found in Crohn's disease, for example. However, when patients have multiple intestinal ulcers that are not typical of Crohn's or intestinal tuberculosis, and the clinical course is unusual, clinicians should consider the possibility of EBV-associated LPD that involves the gastrointestinal tract, because the treatment strategy and prognosis are completely different. So sometimes it may look like Crohn's or IBD, but it may actually be a gastrointestinal presentation. Like there is case report of gastrointestinal presentation of diarrhea looking like IBD, but was clearly induced by the virus. It's rare, but now we have one case report. So I'm just saying, if for those of us watching us, if you are not responding correctly, if you're not improving correctly, you know, you have to have those conversations. Maybe read the book. The book really will bring a big picture of this virus together. So
I know we're almost a half hour over what
yes,
I apologize if you have other places to go, but maybe if you have an idea, but I have two things that I wanted to maybe cover. One being why it's important to supplement the immune system, especially if you're on immunosuppressants, whether it's steroids like prednisone or whether it's biologics like Stelara, Humira, Remicade, etc. And two, I think it would be nice if you'd like to, I can share my screen and explain that image that we put up on the event page. What are your thoughts on that?
So let's see, the image, I shot that image while I was watching Dr. Harley talking about his research. He's in Cincinnati Children's Hospital, I believe, and I really want to talk to him. So as you can see, you see 4 different autoimmune disorders. So he just briefly showed the screen. He didn't explain it. They're doing DNA testing. They're very methodical. So this is, you know, from his research. It's very heavily populated. That's all I can say. It's more populated than rheumatoid arthritis, for example, and probably celiac. Like celiac is similar.
What's interesting too is, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's probably at least 20 to 40% of those with IBD also present arthritis-like symptoms and could even be diagnosed with arthritis. For example, the IBD camp that I've volunteered at in the past, you know, there used to be an IBD weekend and arthritis weekend, and last I checked, it's now combined.
Yes. It's like yes, a smaller percentage, but yeah, I agree. And so we have, if anyone wants to go to the website, the ebdhelp.com, I have a laundry list, and you can click on each condition and actually look at PubMed. I link it. These are just examples of, let me see if I can show you in the book. So we have it on the website. These are different conditions or different groups of conditions: autoimmune, gastrointestinal, misdiagnosis, cancer, inflammation of the brain.
Let me ask you this. What is, so apparently you have this amazing webinar coming up on Monday, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Can you tell us more about that? And I'm going to put the link in the chat box.
Yeah, so we talked with Joel about IBD. I got really excited because if any of the material that we presented today sounds like you need to investigate and understand this more, you need to wrap your head around it, this is a free webinar. It's live. it would be wonderful for you to join us and just hear a bigger picture of what is the virus, what does it do, what does it mean, what do doctors do and don't do, what are possibilities. And I do teach people how to maneuver it, and we have great results. We have great community. I run programs, and so if that's something that resonates with you, you should actually check into possibly maybe trying a program. And if I know that anybody has IBD and is joining us, we were talking with Joel that we would know exactly who the group is. We would be hand-holding. We could even do like a pilot study with that group to see how we respond. I could customize the protocol just to make sure that we optimize. Like Mona Lauren.
Is Monday's webinar the working with you, or is it a free webinar, a free educational webinar?
This is just free educational webinar. On Monday is free educational webinar. But I'm all about solution. I'm not going to give a webinar and leave people hanging.
Yes, I'm looking at the email you sent me, and I guess there's 3 or 4 secrets you're offering. One is you can't heal what you don't know. 2,
Correct.
You need a grand plan for real recovery.
Correct.
And 3, how to avoid the common pitfalls to heal from IBV. And 4, the hidden epidemic and why you're not getting the right help. So are those what you're sharing on Monday?
Yeah, this is because I need this community to understand the virus. And this is like 1 hour when it's a great webinar, you will get it. Like you will see the picture, and then you can talk to your doctor, you can maybe read more, and then you can look at your life and see, is that a possibility? Is it something that I need to look into?
And tell me, it looks like Diane is said, love the info, we'll be at the webinar Monday. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Wonderful, Diane, yes.
And what if someone can't, so the webinar is Monday, 9/16, 5 p.m. Pacific. What if someone can't make that time?
We always record things, so it'll be recorded and it'll be sent to the person that signed up and missed it. So okay, that's not a problem.
Even if you can't make that, sign up on the website and you'll be sent the recording of that, correct?
Yes, I think it will really be worth it just so you can exclude it. For example, say, no, it's not me. I have, I think it's information that is missing, and I really want to reach out to Dr. Harley and say, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to do a study together? His end is research, my end is clinical practice. Let's do something together and verify things and move it forward. And so there is more hope for that community, that percentage of people with IBD. That's, that's not the whole picture. There's different causes, obviously, but it may be one of them.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
I was going to wrap up with a nice little thing, but is there anything else that you wanted to share? Because I know we went over, so I really am sorry for everyone's time.
Yeah, we need to go. No, I'm just very, very, very touched with the efficacy you have and the foundation you created. I'm very honored to be now part of it, and can't wait to see what we can come up with. Very, very excited.
I'm excited away. I believe in divine intervention, and there's a reason why we met, and there's a reason why we're continuing to work together. And the best we can do for the IBD population is to show, here are potential root causes and solutions, and also change things in the research world. Those are really a big part of what my purpose is, and really my purpose is those who have IBD, those who are listening, and those maybe don't know about One Great Gut yet. As much as large as we are, which is pretty large, last I checked, over 20,000, that's only like 3% of those with IBD. So really my mission, my purpose is you who have Crohn's and colitis. My story is just a small part of that, and I feel blessed and honored to have the strength and opportunity to share this, and everyone can listen. So being that mindset is so important, can I wrap up with a small little mindset thing?
Yes, before that, I'm going to put my personal email here in the chat. So if anyone is thinking, connect with Joel and me. We could run a small group, do something, if maybe in future, if it resonates. We really both want to be of service and move that information forward just in case it can help. So go ahead, my dear.
Awesome. So and I agree, yes. So thank you. Please email Kasia. She's here to help. She's an expert in EBV. I'm an expert in being a patient and patient advocacy and mindset. And so that's what I'm gonna do right now. So as long as you're not operating heavy machinery or driving, please close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to envision. I want you to envision that all of the things that we spoke about with today, all of the possibilities of viruses and proteins and all of that, imagine that's not in your body. So how do we do that? Now, I want you to imagine, first take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in and slowly out. And imagine a white light coming from the sky, coming from whether it's God or your angels, the universe, spirit, Allah, whatever you believe in, it's coming and it's entering your body and it's filling your body with healing light. And it's filling every cell in your body, coming down through your head, your temple, down to your neck, your shoulders, arms, chest, legs, and it's going all the way into the center of the earth. So you're connected right now to whatever higher power is above you through this white light down through the center of earth, grounding you. And that's your truth. That's your groundedness. That's your strength. And we'll take one more deep breath in and out. And no, we just did this small exercise in something like 45 seconds. You can always return to this no matter what's going on in your life.
That is beautiful.
And when you're ready, open your eyes.
I'm going to add one caveat to it for you guys, which will seal the deal. I saw a documentary a few days ago when a researcher who works with DNA showed unequivocally, right in front of the documentary camera, that intention and energy healing of a person can make changes in the DNA. Yeah. Not just the virus. We can actually, the thought, the intention, the hands-on, the focus. So when you bring that focus to the white light, you can actually imagine, if you're scientifically minded, that you are going into your DNA and making it beautiful again and heal it.
Yeah, you know, so to expand on that, and it's really beautiful because there's this conversation that, oh, I have this thing and it's because of my genes and nothing I can do about that. Well, that's entirely incorrect, because now we know through functional medicine with both myself and Dr. Kasia practice is genes may load the gun, but it's your lifestyle, it's your intention that can pull the trigger. And you have the choice of what is part of your intention, as part of your lifestyle. And I've been researching this for decades, and I'm fascinated by it because if you're familiar with the Crohn's and Colitis Summit, where I interviewed 15 patients who've healed themselves, I'm really fascinated by the ones who did it through their mind. Yeah. It's entirely possible for all of us. I
saw a researcher move paper with his mind right in front of the camera. We do have a capacity. So yes, it's powerful. So don't underestimate what you already have in you. That's exactly what Joel is saying. We all have it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joel. Can't wait to see what happens next. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone. Thanks you so much for staying.
I hope this was useful.
Thanks. Bye.